Fighting games are an internationally successful genre of video games from both an economic and competitive perspective. The impact of these games on pop culture can be felt even outside of the gaming world, with several Hollywood films, tournaments, and other events and pieces of media made to capitalize off the success of these games. As pieces of media that represent practitioners of martial arts, it should be addressed whether or not these are proper representations of martial arts, especially in terms of ethnic inclusivity, given the present diversity and international reach of martial arts in our global society. I examined 4 of the largest fighting games in order to examine representation of Asian characters within these games by cataloging Asian characters and categorizing them into 9 archetypes: the Elder, the Master, the Dragon, the Rikishi, the Thai Boxer, the Ninja, the Schoolgirl, the Amazon, and the Kunoichi. But these are further distilled into 3 different types of character, of the Master, the Paragon, and the Femme Fatale. I categorized a total of 60 Asian characters and was surprised to see how many of them fell into these archetypes. The Elder and the Master. Characters that fall into the Elder archetype tended to be an old, male character who have studied their art for years and attained some type of spiritual wisdom or enlightenment through practice and study of their discipline. The Master, on the other hand, could be young or old, but is characterized by their hostile nature and mastery over their own fighting style. These characters find a historical precedent in figures from Kung Fu history, such as Ip Man and Bai Mei, as well as a trope in Chinese cinema known as the Evil God, a martial arts master who has turned evil or insane. The Paragon. The Dragon. This archetype relies on a rather problematic body of work known as Bruceploitation that depicts a version or the likeness of Bruce Lee in his seminal work. The Rikishi, the Ninja, and the Thai Boxer. These 3 archetypes present an ethnic ownership of their discipline. The Rikishi and the Ninja are almost always Japanese or otherwise coded to be so, and the Thai Boxer is simply that. These characters exist only as an example of their martial art, and can be considered stereotypical of practitioners of that fighting form. The Femme Fatale. Asian female fighters in fighting games are almost always inherently sexualized and should be examined in their own lens. I found that these characters are almost exclusively characterized by their age, femininity, and hostility, which are all characteristics determined by patriarchal values. Among these archetypes are the Schoolgirl, the Amazon, and the Kunoichi. The Schoolgirl is characterized by their wearing of a sailor-style uniform, or seifuku, typically juvenile. The sexualization of these characters tends to be problematic due to the low age of these characters, despite that often being their main trait. The Amazon is typically shown to be a strong woman, resistant or adverse to feminine characteristics while also being sexualized. The culmination of this archetype manifests in the character of Wonder Woman, who is quite literally an Amazonian. Finally, the Kunoichi is a stealth ninja, quiet and feminine, utilizing deadly force in tandem with the art of stealth and ninjutsu. The Kunoichi comes from Japanese history as female ninjas, with the name Kunoichi being a sort of play on words with a character that denotes women in Japanese. Unlike the Paragon version of the ninja, Kunoichi are much more sexualized in nature, which has no precedent in Japanese history. Among most of the outliers that I found, many of their character gimmicks, whether mechanical or aesthetic, were much more intersectional in nature. Where many of these characters are ethnically homogenous according to their martial art of choice, some of these characters were practicing martial arts that were outside their country of origin. I found that the King of Fighters series largely defied these tropes, with 15 out of 22 of their Asian characters not falling into any of the established categories. The presentation and creation of these characters bottleneck to be a representation of tired narrative tropes, propagate and perpetuate a shallow, one-dimensional look of Asian culture, and ignore the spaces available by creating and representing intersecting identities. Furthermore, the objectification and sexualization of female characters also propagates similar oppressive structures that are informed, reflected, and absorbed through media. Where other forms of media are dominated by the Western market and industry, fighting games are unique in such a way that the base of consumers of this cultural monolith are enjoyed internationally. Due to this, we would expect more intersecting forms of identities represented in these games, but that is not the case as shown above. In my research, I questioned whether or not these archetypes could be attributed to mechanical limitations, but I could not find any reason for this to be so. Where there are mechanical archetypes for how a character plays in-game, these have nothing to do with race or fighting style. Broader categorizations of mechanical archetypes that I found were grapplers, hit and runs, and zoners, which are characterized by their effective fighting range and general strategy. There are more archetypes, but I found that these are the most prominent between games within the fighting game genre. There are more series-specific archetypes, such as Street Fighter's Shoto archetype, or Tekken's Mishima archetype, that have more to do with series-specific mechanics and strategy. Where these archetypes exist as a result of mechanical limitations, I found that there was still a connection to character race and fighting style, such that the characters who fell under the Shoto categorization in Street Fighter, as well as the Mishima archetype in Tekken, were tied with race, due to it being tied to a karate style and a family line respectively. Other characters who did not fall under these more series-specific archetypes and fell instead to broader mechanical categorizations, such as grapplers, hit and run, and zoners, had no immediate connection to race. In my research, I found that the Paragon archetype mainly consisted of Asian characters who performed martial arts according to their own ethnicity and did not have many outliers. In the real world, many practitioners of martial arts come from outside of their originating nationalities. Perhaps one of the most interesting examples of this can be found in sumo wrestling, where it is an inherently Japanese sport that is very important to Japanese culture. Modern sumo grand champions, also known as yokozuna, are from a variety of places. Out of the last 10 grand champions of sumo, 6 out of 10 of them are foreigners to Japan, being from American Samoa, Mongolia, and the United States. The diversity of this sport alone serves as a resistance to the concept of homogenization within martial arts. It can offer an insight to the modernization and diversity of martial arts. Furthermore, more examples of international appeal and diversity within martial arts can be found at the Olympics, with medalists for a number of Asian martial arts being non-Asian participants from a variety of countries. Though the use of tropes and stereotypes can contribute to the existence of a problematic view of a group or people, it also contributes to the oversaturation of character types within a genre. Seeing the same things over and over, especially when it comes to characters, will bore the average consumer. Doing something new and interesting takes more risk but can pay off in the long term. The King of Fighters series, which had more outliers in terms of Asian representation, had the most interesting characters to me, as they defied expectation on a visual and narrative level. On the other hand, while cataloging the other games, I got bored of seeing the same look and feel for characters that were not outliers.